Okay, so we're going to go on with a slightly larger panel here and an even broader topic because, the first panel, I believe, because I unfortunately missed both of them, the first and the second. I think the first one was primarily on the responsibility of government. The second one was more about infrastructure, and now we're going to look at the whole topic from really a consumer perspective and the Internet of Things, which is a term that I always like because it means everything, but it also makes it harder to protect everything, basically, because that's what it is. There are billions of devices out there that can be hacked or misused, and I'm very happy to have this distinguished panel here of representatives from factories, from academia, and to discuss the topic. And let's start, because Eugene pointed out that we are living in that dark age of cyber. Let's start with a little thought experiment. So you wake up as a CEO of a company in the morning and you find out that your self-driving car has caused several accidents, that the elevator that you programmed has been stuck, and that all the patient data in a large hospital that you run or whose cyber you run has been compromised. So it's not a good way to start your workday. So what do you do? What can you do in the Internet of Things if that came up on your desk in the morning?
Well, the question about this Internet of Things is, I think, here two things. First of all, what you talk about is very much the hacking of the, I would say, critical infrastructures. There we have to think about how much we have to consider the Internet of Things being instrumental on this. So I think they can be, because if you are not careful enough and bring in elements into your company, into your system, which are not secure, then you definitely increase the risk. But I think here, I would say this is two parts of the game. The other part is, I think Internet of Things can also become elements in a botnet, so maybe they are part of an attack. But in general, I think here Internet of Things, we have. Now let's go a little step further and say, what are we talking about? Internet of Things can be industrial internet. Internet of Things is a car which runs autonomously. Internet of Things can be the puppet in your kid's home. So I think here we have to differentiate on what we are talking when we talk about Internet of Things.
Well, when you look at it from a company's perspective, the goal is to connect ever more. I mean, to create the connected home, to create a connected environment. Isn't that increasing the risk basically by the minute?
Yeah, I think here the risk that this system gets out of control, the connected devices, yes, but I think it is not necessary that right away the risk of your company is rising. So I think here what we have to think about how to design these things and how to, I would say, unlink these elements that they cannot penetrate critical infrastructure. But I think they nevertheless can harm a lot. And you made the example of the self-driving car. My impression is that the IT security or cyber security in the car industry is on at least the awareness is on a very high level. So we have to make sure that the car is designed in a manner that it is cyber secure. I think here two elements. First of all the devices in the car has to be designed in the due manner as well. The overall system of connectivity has to be created that it works.
If you look at your products and at your clients in that Internet of Things, what keeps you up at night? What's the biggest security risk that you see?
So you heard this already. I'm also a very good sleeper, yeah. So this risk doesn't keep me awake. I mean, what is an area of concern? From today's perspective, critical infrastructures, private life, smart cities are not separated. Yeah, we heard it today already many times. Everything is overlapping. Many things which do not have a basic protection have a connection to the internet, and its number is going drastically up. When we go to the Consumer Electronics Show, Las Vegas, one of the biggest events we have in the industry, and we talk to the major vendors on consumer devices, there is not even an attention on device protection. What we are trying also together with the colleagues here from the semiconductor industry is try to show possibilities, secure devices, bring in the right crypto algorithms which bring protection towards device level and towards communication, and build a system where we can scale a security over the lifetime of an application.
Sorry?
Never mind.
Oh, okay.
I hope everybody could hear me.
Yeah, no, it was very powerful. Well, you mentioned Las Vegas. Why is the awareness still so low? I mean, how can that be possible after years of discussions about that?
I mean, conferences like this help to create awareness. Having said this, I mean, we discussed this now quite a while. The last 20 years or last 30 years, it was mentioned in the IT business. I think a lot of us know what we should do. Imagine for a moment a hack or a botnet or a major cyber attack would create a major fatality inside a country. Hundreds of people would die. Immediately the political pressure would go up dramatically. And the question is now to all of us, why we have to wait that the political system will be destabilized? We heard some examples already. Why we have to wait that a major fatality, or call it a cyber terrorism, what we see already today on some of the hospitals or even some of the political systems, we have right now, we have cyber terrorism. And here we have to act together from a political point of view, from a regulator's point of view, and then we from a technology point of view, we can provide the right ingredients to stabilize the system and to build what I was calling the scalable security.
You're from a particularly sensitive sector because it's about money and everybody cares about his or her money. How is your sector affected by that? What are you doing to address that risk?
Sure. So specifically these days as a sector, we're focused on the kind of resiliency of the actual financial markets. So, each financial institution has its own house to run and secure, but we're not looking at the interconnectivity of the overall payment systems. We're looking at how do you know if you are a victim that you're now clean before you come back into the system. So the whole contagion theory of making sure in a post event, how would you actually validate somebody was clean? The topic keeps being talked about in a very complex way, and specifically when it comes to IoT and other things, I like to try to break things down. So I know there's CEOs here. I'm the CISO that brings them the bad news that they are going to be on the front page of the paper. But the right conversation happening in the board level is around simplicity. So we often take this topic and make it much more complex than it needs to be. And I thought I'd share a quick analogy that everyone probably can understand. I don't think this cyber threat is actually anything new, right? It's history repeating itself, but obviously coming in a new fashion. So today, we all understand what it takes to secure our own homes, right? We have the road outside our street, which today now is the internet. We have doors and windows, which today are could be code, could be connections to the internet. And we spend a lot of our time, oftentimes chasing the fancy things. And I can't remember who said it earlier today, but doing the basic hygienes well. So if your doors and your windows are closed and locked, and somebody is driving by your house and they're thinking about robbing you, they're going to drive by to the next house that has open doors and windows. So the IoT thing. Would be we're now allowing people into our houses, even though the doors and windows may be closed, and then once they're in your house, what can they do?
There were many reports recently about a very large German bank that shall remain unnamed that really needed to upgrade its IT system, or is still investing a lot of money to upgrade its IT system. Why has this process been rather slow in the banking sector?
So in general, from a banking standpoint, remember you've had lots of mergers and acquisitions and divestitures happen for many years, and when those organizations, those companies are brought in, oftentimes you may have some older technology, or the decision to integrate may not happen now. Maybe it's in a 3 or 4 year plan. So in the financials, you'll oftentimes find many different technologies. So you're just not operating with one operating system. We're jealous of all the technology companies that are newer, because literally they may have only one system, one version that they have to protect. We have quite a few. If I told you that, I'd be making it vulnerable. So, but that's just the reality of the industry as itself. And then I got to give a call out to my comrades in the power right? Power is even worse, right? To replace a SCADA system isn't just a fly-by-night money thing, and oftentimes governments are the ones that are controlling the pricing. So a lot of this has to do with modernizing that infrastructure and doing the hygiene well.
I want to ask you a question that probably the representatives of the companies are not eager to answer, and that's the question of liability. So what happens, who is responsible when something, or some of the things that we mentioned actually occur? I mean, what do we need to change in terms of liability to address these issues?
Well, we already had it this day. I think we manufacturers, software developers, software companies have to be liable for what they are delivering. So it's nowadays it's up to the customer itself. He has to buy and configure things. He does not have any idea what he's doing there and what it means to plug in something into the internet.
So it's the
There's no
IKEA for IT,
yes.
basically, yeah.
So it's liability is one thing, but I think these devices should be more assisted by the manufacturers. That is, you know, that plug and play idea. Now I want to extend it to a plug and trust idea. That is some sort of self-configuring, that these devices must be smart in another sense, that they are able to establish a security level without knowledge people configuring them outside.
So does that mean we need kind of a security seal of approval, or?
We need more. I think that is a first step. We already discussed that in another panel today. I fully agree what they said there, but I think we need more than just one seal, but that is some sort of static seal. And the world we are living in is very dynamic. That is, there are lots of change, and you have this seal. What does that mean next day? So you need some sort of continuous assurance and testing that everything is okay. So sealing and testing, that is some sort of managed service. Maybe that is a business case for some company here, but assuring all over the day that everything is fine.
So it's basically trust and verify.
Yeah.
But do you think the consumer will be willing to pay it more for that?
No.
No.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
I think the consumer thinks that must be in the products, and maybe that is a differentiator for the manufacturer or the software deliverers to offer this kind of service. Maybe, and we had it before, maybe we can combine it with some sort of insurance. So if you buy some maybe more expensive devices with a higher level of security and trust level, you get a better insurance rating or something like that. Maybe there are incentives for customers to do that, but frankly speaking, and we had it with privacy and other issues as well, we are not willing to pay for that. We just, we think that the manufacturers should provide us with this kind of technology.
That sounds bad, right? I mean, the customers are not willing to pay more, but you have to provide more.
Well, it depends. I think let me give you an example. We just debated about the sticker or whatever you highlight that a product is cyber secure. When you look back, energy efficiency was similar. And it took very long until the people understood what energy efficiency means. And many people still don't know, because you do not find a slightly more efficient fridge on your bill of the energy bill. But with these green, orange, and red arrows we today have on fridges, washing machine, and others, people think about buying A or A++ is of value. So with this, we created the understanding of value at the customer side. And I think with the cybersecurity tags or whatever, we create a demand and the idea that people who see it as a value will buy this. And there, I think they are even willing to pay for because we create the clear understanding there is value. And for them, it is also something, well, think about how many people on the road whom you ask about cybersecurity, what they have to do. No clue. They need it easy to use. They need kind of a trusted, and I think here, approach how to you can achieve it. And honestly said, I think here just one remark. There is a lot possible today, but the question is, it is not asked for. There's one point, and there is a lot of possible, but many people don't know how to make it. Many of these IoT devices are done like this. They are brewed together and thrown on the road.
Robert, is that your impression of your customers as well?
I think it's all about education, so I think you need to get the balance right. So for me, the consumer needs more education. I think I heard a stat earlier that I think it was a third of the economy, so the population will be over 60 in 5 years' time. Actually, you've got to look at, the IoT really is coming to life now. In 5 years' time, that's when it's going to really be, booming. I think, so education, yes, you need to educate the consumer. You've got to get a balance, and I think there has got to be a level of regulation as well, whether you call it a kite mark. But I think it's getting the balance right in terms of understanding the damage that can be caused, and probably regulation in certain industries. So if it's critical national infrastructure, then yes, you need regulation quite strongly. If it is a home sensor that is just checking whether somebody's walking around, they're safe, probably not. So you've got to get the balance right.
I mean, that sounds so easy. We heard from your colleagues in the panel so that people are still rather careless after years of discussion. So how can that be changed? I mean, what can the companies do to educate consumers?
So I think it has to start in schools. Okay, so for me, we need to teach school kids at a very early age. We teach them how to cross the road. Okay, we teach them sex education. We should now be teaching them, how to actually, use a computer properly. So cyber awareness has to be done at an early age. If you look at the hackers, by the time they're 16, 18 in their bedrooms, they already know the dark side of the web and are doing some awful things. So I think education. I think also people have to start to use their common sense. If I'm in work and I get an email and it's saying I've won £1 million, I've got to start thinking about, well, actually, did I enter a lottery? Yes or no? Am I really that lucky? So I think it's a mixture of education, common sense, in all of this as well. If I go to the, I don't know, if I go to the fish mongers, and I want to buy some fish, and the fish smells, guess what? I'm not going to buy it. Okay, so I think there has to be some common sense, but I think it's a mixture of all things.
But is your impression, for example, because you mentioned the speed of, or in this case, the slow speed of adapting to adjusting to these changes, but in general, I mean, everything is happening so fast. I mean, how quickly can you catch up as a company? Or in this educational process that you mentioned?
I think it's not so, I'm convinced it's not so difficult to catch up, because we have some standards. Take the SIM card. Who from you takes care about the security of a SIM card? SIM card is secure. We have a standard, we have a hardware token on this. We have the right cryptology, and since many years, last year 5.5 billion SIM cards sold on a worldwide base. If we would apply the same security standard we have today at the SIM card towards the phone, if we would apply this only to any IoT device, would be a major step in IoT security.
So why
take payment cards? I mean, now we have the EMV introduction finally also in the US. We have many societies on the world where we have secure payment cards, also chip-based again. If we would apply the same technology, the same kind of standardization into any kind of, call it mobile banking application, would be a major step to secure the mobile channel of major banks.
And you think it's not happening because it's too expensive, or?
Yeah, this is not a question of expensive. This is awareness. This is really political education. This is sometimes the pressure also from the regulators, and it's also it's on us Yeah, if we decide together in the industry, okay, let's do major steps to push standardization, to be fast, to sit together, to be pragmatic. The success of the mobile phone would never have happened if we would not have worked on the standardization 20 years ago now, or 25 years ago.
What is your impression from your industry? What's the impact of software on this? I mean, is there any way, for example, open sources could help in that process, or to make it more accessible, to make it easier to share other insight that you have found globally, or?
Well, I think, you know, I always look for precedents, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about IoT devices, but there was a very large company who fell victim via their building management systems, right? Where it was just a management system that could, let's just say, secure your data center, but it was internet facing, and, you know, basically the bad guys were able to come in that way. So from an IoT standpoint, you know, it's just a new vector of, you know, who's coming in and why. And from you know, from the industry standpoint, when we look at these types of things, we share information, right? So there's information sharing going on, recommendations on things. But, you know, one of the things that we are considering is the realization of, you know, is the government going to help you, or can the government truly help you? Well, you have to remember, all of this depends on your accessibility and availability of the internet. Because if it's not there, how is your company going to deliver services to its customers if it's not there? And should you begin to think like, what's your alternative?
That looks
Exactly
scary.
red.
Yeah.
So here's a potential remedy for the vendors that are out there.
Right.
If we're all going to assume that we're going to fall victim to a hack, right? If we're all going to assume that, then maybe we need to have a solution that allows you to do two things. So let's use the home router as an example, as basically having all of your IoT devices coming through that home router. You know, should there be a way to that home router just to restrict traffic if you want to go to a higher level of assurance? There's a delicate balance between what customers want and what is good security, and you got to balance them. Well, maybe we need to look at some of our products and solutions to give choices. And what that choices means is, if an organization is under attack, or let's just say your home is under attack, is there a way to push a button to then give a higher level of assurance that would potentially prevent that attack from going away and mitigating it for a period of time? So we also need to think about the problem a little bit differently. And I think it goes very much into one of our colleagues over there had talked about, as far as doing things additionally, having higher levels of assurance, not insurance, but assurance.
We've spoken briefly now about the role of the government, of regulation and so. Well, how would you describe the role that has been played so far by governments in your areas of business?
I think, you know, what we're seeing now is the government. You know, you saw yesterday, you know, in the UK, you know, National, you know, Cybercrime Centre opening, the Queen opening it. You're starting to see more and more now in terms of government, you know, are now very aware. You know, if you look at, you know, what's going on in the world, and, you know, I'm not going to get into, you know, different countries, but certainly the threat risk has clearly increased dramatically. Government are now clearly aware of that. I think, you know, certainly the UK government are doing all they can. I think they're taking an active role in making sure that, you know, people understand cyber. They're working with, you know, small to medium businesses, you know, in terms of trying to guide them in terms of just basic hygiene, you know, doing backups, making sure that they're secure, changing passwords. So I think we're now starting to see government getting more involved, and I think as the threat vectors rise, and they will continue to rise, I think that will happen, you know, more broadly. So,
what is the impression of the role played by the German government in that field?
Well, I think the German government is, I think, very much aware, but coming very much from the Minister of Intern, from the critical infrastructure, which I think is right to consider, because this is the most critical, and it already had been mentioned, when you break down energy system, I think you have a problem. If you break down many other things on that level, you do not want to have it. They established, I think, quite some good platforms, or I would say they did not establish, but they recommended and asked for, and I think it was already mentioned, where the companies exchange about how they approach or how they inform each other about the topics of attacks or risks or observed elements. I think this is very helpful, and we should do more of this, having these exchanges where we build on the experience of each other. I think nevertheless, I want to come back to the Internet of Things. The question is their idea, which I support, of course, the idea from Mr. Auerbach that we should put in more IT security, but you will always have a lot of trash on the market. And there the question is, we need a system where you can handle these elements which are secure, which has a proven security and can show it up. I would say up to date, I'm protected, versus those who aren't. And in a critical situation, and I like the idea, you just kick out everything which you cannot trust for the moment until you come back to a safe standard. And there I would like that the politics and ministry would propose more those initiatives where we come to an approach how to use Internet of Things, and also supports those devices and elements which enables and provides a certain level of security in these Internet of Things devices.
When he talks about sharing information or sharing insights, isn't that unlikely because companies are still in competition?
Well, that is a big issue, but it works because there is a trust relationship between the companies, and they have agreed upon what they are doing. And there are other initiatives, and they are using IT for establishing trust between themselves. For instance, of course, you can encrypt data and you can filter out something, and you can do something in that direction. But building up trustworthy environments, exchanging information, everyone benefits from exchanging that, putting something in, taking something out of that. It works. It even works on European level. We have set up projects with partners that are in competition out in the field, but they exchange these kind of information because they see, and we had it several times this afternoon, they have to cooperate and collaborate to defend themselves against the attackers.
So do you think the security challenges of the Internet of Things will be resolved by the government or by the companies in the medium run?
Oh, we all have a part in this kind of solution. I think the companies have to come up with more secured devices and services and simple to use devices. Government has to set up, we have it before, legal frameworks, some sort of guidelines. Maybe for critical areas they have to go for certification things to look for that and ask for certificates for devices. And of course, as we had before, we need education. That is a key, but not only at school, because it takes a lot of time before it will be in place. We need it on each and every level. We have the parents have to be educated, the workers have to be educated, lifelong learning. In that direction, we need it very, very strongly, and we need some sort of education enhancement which is not in place by now, not in Germany, not in other countries. We need that. And last thing, maybe we need enhancement in academia as well. That I'm coming from the Department of Computer Science. We have all this stuff with software engineering and secure engineering in computer science, but we need secure systems engineering education in other branches as well, and that is still missing, and we need some efforts there.
You can see this ticking clock, but it is incredibly scary. So if we want to open it up as we want to questions from the audience as well, we need to do one last round here on the panel, and it's a question that I want to address to all of you. Just a very general question. Do you think the open and free Internet of Things as we know it now will still exist in 10 years' time? If you want to start.
I hope yes, and at the same point in time, I hope that we push awareness and regulation to critical things, whatever a critical thing is. We have rules and regulations on sometimes stupid things, size of an apple, curve of a banana, yeah. And I think here we should have, in some areas, we should have
Mr. Oettinger.
We should have conscious decision where we need a scalable security.
So with Brexit, you'll probably find a wall somewhere.
But that's a different issue now.
But no, I'd agree. I think
Oops.
I think yes is the answer. It will still be there, but I think it will be more regulated, and it needs to be more regulated than it is. Albeit, we need to make sure that it's regulated at the right levels for various industries.
Just quick follow-up. Do you really think Brexit is going to affect your work on that issue?
No, I think at the end of the day, cybersecurity is here to stay. Cybercrime is here to stay. It's not going away. So, certainly from my perspective, I think it's not going to go anywhere.
What about you?
I think it will definitely be here. I think it'll be much broader. IoT, people have a view on that, but it's really about the collection of data. So I think we'll have sensors in the most awkward things, and we've got flying devices, we've got medical devices, we've got in-home. I mean, you now have the ability to just walk in your house and talk, right? And the lights go on and different things. Well, all that's going to be, I think, even more advanced. My concern with all that is the adversary is all about the ability to get to the data and control the sensor. So if we don't build it in, then we're going to be in a much worse place as far as having conferences like this.
How connected is your home?
Not connected.
You're not.
Nor do I like social media.
Yeah. No, so you're off grid at home, or yeah. What about you? What is your take on that?
Well, I think the Internet of Things will rise drastically. The question is, will we have the similar open Internet as we have today? I think talking about the infrastructure, my belief is that sooner or later we have maybe a double layer there. One, it's more or less, I would say, uncontrolled, and then we may have to go under critical circumstances to a more controlled situation. What you have is an internet at home. This is local networks. And I think here, while you may ask me how much I have connected, not so much my son has. And when he talks to this very box, I do not want to say the name, sometimes his wife is confused whom he's talking to. So,
At least
but I think
somebody
here
does.
it will come. And what I also personally believe is that when I get old, I'm pretty sure the Internet of Things will help me to be self-determined much longer in my own, let's say, flat. This is something which I really think has a big value. Therefore, I'm a great believer in, and I believe there's a lot positive. So the rest we have to manage.
So the companies are very optimistic. What about you?
Well, maybe a bit in between. I hope we will have an open internet in the near future. I think we needed to participate in the exchange of information and all the values we get out of it. But I fear that there will be some monopolists taking their advantages out of it. So it's my hope that government will have a look at it, that nothing in that direction will appear on the market. And I agree with you, Mr. Bloss, that we will have more these local environments. That is, not everything is on the internet. We have these local area things that can be controlled and so on. And that is a good thing in the future. But again, I hope we will have an open and free internet for all of us.
Well, if you want an open and free internet, we should open it up here now to the audience as well. So who wants to ask a question? I see a hand there, so maybe you can get a mic. That would be... Oh, And maybe you can introduce yourself very briefly.
Thank you very much for the discussion. My name is Peter Bernsberg from Deloitte. Hello. So my only question is, what will you do different tomorrow after today's discussions? The only one thing. The only one thing. What will you do tomorrow different than today?
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I mean, we are putting quite some time and effort into this technology. We are organizing together with our colleagues and partners here conferences like this, and we will keep pushing this idea of a more secure society. I mean, we are a technology company. We are a quite old company. We have provided security into, for example, banknote systems. The last 150 years, we are specialists in secure payments, and we will continue to push high-end security. This is what we will do, but already yesterday.
Ahead of the curve, yeah. Robert?
I think for me, I've made some great contacts today. So, yeah, we talk about ecosystem. So I think one of the things I'll do is, there's certainly one or two organisations that I've been, made aware of today that are doing stuff around IoT that I find very fascinating. I'll go and talk to them just to understand it.
We'll just continue to echo some of these themes every chance I get. I think the biggest thing is believe it or not, is just doing the hygiene well.
Do you want to get in as well?
Yeah, I think for us, cybersecurity is already on a very high level. But I think what we have, and it's like water. If you think about many drops make a hole in the stone. So in order to make the people and society aware of what it requires, I think we have to continue from there.
Well, I think it was important that we talk about collaboration, and that was an open discussion here. And the companies told us that they really collaborate in this issue, and they are open to do that. And that is the main thing. And to tell the others go in that direction, that will be beneficial for all, and maybe that is a benefit for all of us.
Well, maybe one add-on. I think what we are heading for is to have a kind of an instant cybersecure development environment, so the people can take it off the shelf and have it kind of ready done. Well, for the highest level, you need to do a little bit more, but it is what we are heading for.
Any more questions? Who else is eager to? Oh, here.
Andrew Ginter, Waterfall Security and the Industrial Internet Consortium. A question about liability insurance. With safety, the equation is well understood. There is the user who suffers a safety fault and sues the supplier for the damages that the user suffered. With security, there's a third party. It's the attacker. If we make the company in the world that has the most secure software, but nothing is secure, if we make that company liable for defects, all software has defects. It's not possible to produce perfect software. What we do is we hand the financial success of the company in the world that has the best software into the hands of their enemies. An enemy who says, pay me $1 million or I'll find a defect and your customers will sue you because I attack them, and fails to get their $1 million ransom, will then study the most secure software in the world, find the defect. It'll be hard, but you can do it. Nothing is secure. And now they attack the consumers. The consumers sue the provider for hundreds of millions of dollars. How is it possible to design a liability system that does not hand the financial success of all software providers into the hands of their enemies?
Well, good question. I'm not from an insurance company, but I try to answer. I think we have to learn from things that are already in place, because all these products can be destroyed manually and by heart. So if you build up an insurance, it's not to insure against 100% perfectionism, because you're right, it's not able to do that, but to set up some sort of risk level that is ensured that if something in that and that happens, that will be covered buy an insurance. And if you, very simple, do not have the current patch level or whatever, then this is out of this scope. So I don't think that there is an insurance company that will set up something against each and every incident. That will be impossible. Define what is the scope of what is covered, and then you can go a step forward. Well, he asked me about insurances and liability. I'm not a lawyer and something like that. I'm just an academia. So I would try to build systems that give you most trust in hand and on methods to build these systems. That is a meta thing. But I fully agree it's a really difficult topic, but it's worth to think about how to do that. I think we can go a step forward in that.
So, alternate way to think about that. So today it happens, right? Vendors have lots of patches, right? And really, what a patch is a defect, right? Usually, it's a vulnerability of some type or an enhancement. So it's already in the marketplace. And I know there's been conversations on insurance, but a good risk management strategy does include potentially insurance, right? Because with risk management, you do a couple things. You either accept the risk, right? You're on the internet, you're accepting the risk, right? You transfer the risk. In this case, you're transferring the risk to potentially an insurance policy to help mitigate it. The third thing that you do is you mitigate the risk. You actually take some actions to mitigate it. So again, when people talk about insurance, I think it's just a consideration, and it's an individual thing, and it goes into kind of your risk management practice. And I think anybody who's obviously a CEO of the company knows all about different types of insurances. So I think sometimes we're getting wrapped around the fact that, if I buy cyber insurance, I'm good to go. No, but it should be part of a good risk management consideration.
Well, I think here, when you look at engineering, we also know that in many things designed today, tomorrow we can do it in better ways. So as long as a company adheres to the, I would say, state of the art at the very moment, I think the company can prove that. So can you be sued? Nevertheless, yes, you can. But I think here, sooner or later, we will get to a level where I would say jurisdiction has to come to an understanding, something which I sold as an IoT device in 10 years before, so today. I think I cannot think ahead of these potential attacks. Therefore, I think here jurisdiction has to deal with this topic of dynamics over the time, and nothing is 100% perfect. And this is also true for many other areas in life, and there we can handle it. So I would say sooner or later we will also be handling this. On the other side, you will be made liable when you do not take care, for instance, your customers' data. And I think this is fair to expect that companies do that.
We have time for one more question. I already seen a hand up there. So.
Holger Wittges, Zentrum Digitalisierung Bayern. Danke für die interessante Diskussion. I have a question to Dr. Ploss. Several times today we heard about this Internet of Things elements and the question how to get them secure. We had this idea of separating two more or less embedded systems. One's reachable from outside, the other one is only reachable physically if you are close to the system. And we had the suggestion from Professor Eckert that plug and play and smartness in a thing of security should be combined. I think these are two good ideas. If you look at your roadmap of your embedded systems, are these requirements you ask your software and hardware developers to include them in next generation IoT devices?
So I cannot answer all of these questions you have because we build devices which are used in building IoT devices. Of course, what we consider in the area where we build, I would say, elements for this secure system that they can be updated over the time. We have, I would say, a programming or environment, how you can develop those. And of course, we can think about architectures which gives you various levels of security. So I think here this, of course, is something which we consider, but there is one point where our capability ends. And when you start connecting it and you transmit data, then I think these data transmitted are outside of our control. So cybersecurity is always something where you, I think, have to consider that the whole framework. I'm not so sure if people are aware of you can even cheat GPS devices, that they assume they are somewhere. So I think even the best car which runs around with 100% protected software assumes to be at a different place than it is, might end up somewhere where it is wrong. So here, yeah, it is true, it's no joke. I think here we have to make sure that we have redundancy. So when you ask me, you have to shield systems. If you go for the high level, you shield systems, you need redundancy. You cannot rely on one, you have to rely on many. You have to be capable to update, and you have to add the ability to observe and detect untypical behavior, and I would say then tag these elements and take it out. So I think here we already heard it needs constant caretaking in order to make it happen, and a constant consideration how to build things differently. But you're right, we need to, at least to a certain thing, kind of, I would say the only secure computer is which has no connections to outside. We run it from the battery. So, and this is somehow where we, for the high security things, we have to come to that you have one link which can you highly control, and that's all. So I think here we have to design it for the need, but we always say the car must be as secure as a plane for the price of the car.
Well, as I said initially, the organizers of the conference are always good for a surprise agenda-wise. So I think next is a surprise guest who is not featured in the agenda, who will be introduced by somebody else. But I would like to thank my distinguished panel for these insights, and I think you all enjoyed very much the Internet of Things, or the discussion on the Internet of Things. And I'm handing it back to my colleague. Yeah.